All right. Uh, Thank you everybody for attending this live discussion. What we're going to talk about today is value-based pricing, and I'm going to give my own experience, what I did when I started, ran, grew my company, all the mistakes I made, what I learned, and actually what I'm doing today. So hopefully that'll be valuable to you. Up on the right of the screen, on my right at least, I have just sort of a series of steps that I put together. So I'm going to go through those, how to even start at the conception of your product. Now, of course, most of you are running a business already, so you're stuck with what you have, right? But listen, you're launching new products. You can always go back and make adjustments to the products you have. So before we get started, you know, the focus of this is really the goal is how can you have better margins, right? That's the goal for all business owners. How can you have better margins with your product? And you can't just charge more, you have to offer more. So I'm going to go through personal stories, and I guess it would be a good idea to just share a little bit about myself and my experience before we get going here. So my name's Luke Peters. I started a company in the garage in 2001, grew it to about 80 million and sold in 2021 to private equity. So during that time, what we were doing is we were selling HVAC, home appliances, consumer products, a lot of fridges, ice makers, wine coolers, beer coolers, and like I said, some HVAC and cooling products as well, and some other things. And we're working with contract manufacturers, we're buying from China, we're working with the factories. But what you learn is, there can be a race to the bottom, right? And some of these products can become commoditized over time. We were fortunate because we chose a good niche. So I guess let's call that step zero. So we'll go through these steps. I want to make this valuable for all of you attending and listening. So we'll try to run through this in 10 or 15 minutes and make the most of your time. And a lot of this, especially for CEOs, you may have heard of these things already. So I'm going to try to add some personal experience, which hopefully is more valuable, because it's one thing for someone to tell you what to do. It's another thing to actually do it, right? And so in this case, I'll tell you guys exactly some of the things I did. Like, for example, when we launched a product, I would say, okay, don't launch it unless we have 53% gross margins. That would be one thing. Now, did we always achieve that? No, but it put the product team on notice. Hey, you got to go find a better niche or find some value, or don't copy the competitor. So that would be an example, and I'll kind of get into some of those stories. So let's start at understanding customer value here. So we're using this little staircase I have on the right. First, actually, let's go even before that. Let's start at step zero. If you are new, or even in your own business, if you're launching products, find a good niche. Now, again, Captain Obvious here. We all know that. But sometimes, you can be in these categories that have the super high volume and make a smaller margin, and you can be, wildly successful. Nothing wrong with that. But I would, your business is going to be more complex. You're going to need more people. There's more risk, bigger insurance, bigger problems that can happen for, a business that's bottom line is a lot smaller, right? So until you get the scale, some people can definitely flip the script on that, but find that niche. And there's so many ways to do that. That's a whole discussion in and of itself. But that would be step zero. Okay. Now, after you've done that, so, you've got your product already, in the market. Now, as you're doing NPD, or even as you go back to your original product, understanding customer value, what happens is, let's say, as an example, an ice maker. Okay, so ice makers, for a while were a great category. We're talking now. Let's talk about compact countertop ice makers. Okay, that's what we were selling, and a lot of competitors, and they were great. They maybe range from, 100 to 200, maybe $250, and people wanted them. You could plug it in, you can make some ice. Maybe you didn't have an ice maker for your refrigerator. But then after a while, everybody started selling them. So then what was the next thing to sell? So then you could sell crushed ice, right? And of course, if you just went with a factory and bought the factory model, so could your competitor, or unless you got an exclusive, and we're talking about, international importing here. Of course, you can make these here now. But the quality may not have been good. So you could bring your own engineering and make a better crushed ice that was more towards, what consumers are looking for. Crushed ice is that, it's that fun ice that you can chew on. So that would be an example of, offering something really unique and being able to charge way higher margins, especially at the beginning. And then on and on, how about ice balls for whiskey? This is another area that that the company is active in, and that we've done a lot of research, spent a lot of time finding out how to make that product, because it's like super difficult. You could use just molds that you're going to stick in the freezer, or you can have a machine that's actually making circular perfect ice balls, for those who enjoy whiskey and other drinks like that. So find the niche. Again, the way I look at it, and this is just my personal viewpoint, I love simplicity. So if you go this route and your margins are higher and your team is smaller and your branding is actually more fun, by the way, and your culture is going to be more fun, and your company doesn't have to be as big, but it's going to cash flow better, and so it's more sustainable and it's less stressful. Like, there's all of these things that pile on when you hit that right niche, and you also win that market, and so you can charge a premium, and of course you have to offer a better product and better service and all those things. So that's understanding the value. So research, create IP if you can. Of course, that's the best way to do it. Differentiate. And then I kind of gave an example of what I'm doing. So next is, analyze the willingness to pay. So listen, upfront surveys, SurveyMonkey. It's amazing how often things like SurveyMonkey are not used. Okay. And of course, look, every company, you've got a huge email list. You could set up a landing page and, do all kinds of testing on that, where you're setting it for pre-orders. So there's a million different ways that nimble companies already know they're doing this every single day, and other companies haven't even thought about. So understanding now, and all of this has to be done ahead of time. The worst thing is, bring your product in. Okay, now let's, we're doing the engineering. Okay, we're about ready to place a PO. Okay, what are we gonna, what's the, what are we gonna charge for it? That's like, no, you got to do all of this at the, in conception, before you've even conceived the product, actually, right? So it's okay, here's the mock-ups, here's the options, here's the different categories and products we can go into, and you've got to do, step 1, 2, and then 3, and then probably even step 4. Okay, let's just move right to step 4. Step 3 is obvious. Price based on value. If you can, listen, everybody usually does a cost plus. Okay. And even my example was minimum 53% margins. It's sort of a cost plus. It costs us this much. We got to charge this much. So I understand that, there's going to be cost plus for most of us, but you can still do value. I'll call it value-based cost plus. Now, this is different than, say, a tech product or software, and you could just 100% go value-based, and you should. So it's totally different. But if you're selling a physical product, a consumer product, there still is going to be a tendency to say, okay, this is what I'm paying for, and I got to get, a return on my investment. But let's talk about positioning. So, I'm actually, talking to somebody this afternoon, did some work on, just understanding the business and how I can help them, potential client. And the website, just really doesn't have any branding. It's not put together right. They have an incredible story to tell, but they're not telling that story. They make an incredible product, but they're not telling the story like they should. So branding is communication. Branding is literally the most important thing I think you can do, because it's how you're expressing your brand, your product, you're communicating to the customer, the end user. What is more important than that, than the product itself, right? And if you can't express that, and can't brand, and can't communicate and market properly in the landscape we have now, no one's going to hear about you. You all know all this that I'm saying, but at the same time, you'd be surprised how many, companies that I talk to, work with, that don't have a marketing or branding plan. So in simple terms, because this is a fast video, and I want to get to the point and not bore all y'all, but branding, how do I simplify it? How can you get more people talking about your business, your product, your service? That's it. How can you get more people talking about your business, your product, your service? So in order to do that, for some companies, it's, have somebody that's ensuring that every day of the week you're getting reviews and potentially video reviews. That alone, for service-based companies, will be all you have to do. Products, you obviously could do the same thing. And there are important review strategies. These are things that I sort of take for granted, but there are ways of syndicating reviews, making sure your reviews are syndicated throughout platforms and retailers, and pretty obvious things in the industry, but not everybody's doing. And also video reviews, testimonials. But the one I love is still working with influencers. So micro influencers, real people, get real people your product. Have systems where this isn't just a one-off. You don't need to work with agents or contractors who just say, okay, we'll get you 10 influencers to talk about your product. You should have your own department. That's like all somebody does all day long is get influencers to talk about your product. We did that successfully and still do at NewAir. So that is it's a great strategy. And it takes, some soft skills and some understanding of what is the trade. It depends on your product or service. Let's say you're selling, a $25 widget. Okay, that's not a lot of value you're trading for that review versus if you're selling a $500, item that influencer will love to own and have in exchange. Legally, they'll have to, mention that during the review. But all of these things can be figured out, and getting people to talk about your product will help you with your pricing. Okay, look at, what's that name? There's a red light brand, because I just went out and bought a red light device for some injuries that I've got, and is it Jove? I think it's Jove, right? They charge so much higher than the market average. So check them out on Amazon. Pretty cool. Really good job of branding for red light. And I'm sure their technology might be a little bit different, but I mean, listen, there's probably not a lot of differences in a lot of these red lights, and they are charging a premium, and they've done an outstanding job of branding and communicating with the consumer to be able to do that. And I'm sure their margins, reflect that. And the other thing is that, when you have, it's sort of, there's sort of two parts to the story here, because when you don't have, if you're selling a product, you need to have good margins, because otherwise, how can you grow your business and scale inventory every single year? Obviously, you might have some bank debt and, an asset-based line or something like that. But if your margins are really tight, every year is nervous, right? It's you got to pay taxes. And now your business grew 5 or 10 or 20%, and now your inventory got bigger. And where's the money coming from, right? And then what happens? What is the result of that? You don't market, you don't spend money on marketing, you don't brand, you don't advertise, right? So that's the thing. When your brand is making a consumer product, if you're over 10%, you're great. If you're over 15, you're really good. If you're in the 20s, you're amazing. And you're able to spend more on marketing, you're able to spend more on inventory, and you can hire better people. It's like, it basically, solves all problems. It's like, the difference of in sports, winning or losing. So that's where you want to get to. These are the steps. We kind of went through them pretty quick. We talked about, 5 and 6 are, basically, how do you know where to start on pricing? You did research before you conceive the product, right? During the conception, you're doing some market research. Now you have it in there, and let's say it's, $199 price point, and that gives you a really high margin. That's great. I mean, if you need to drop it to $179, you might have to later on. Also, how do you have room for discounts and coupons and all those things? So you need to build that room in there. And then, go down. So start high, always start at the top, as high as you think your research determined you can go, and then go down. It's very hard to come in at 149 and later on, start charging 199. That'll be that. And then, avoid a race to the bottom. I just put here, you're dead if you always have to compete on price. Go back to step one. So this can all be done with all of your NPD. Let's say, your shop is, you got, I don't know, 50 products. You should be doing new product development every single year. And so you should have, 5 at least, maybe more. And so you're constantly renewing your products, and you can apply some of these principles. And of course, it's, when you're inside of it, it's more nuanced than this. But, this gives you, how I think about it. It's also a mindset, right? It's when when you're showing up, what are your expectations for your brand? I mean, if your expectations are always, get the camera down here versus up here, then that's how you're going to show up on all of your NPD. So it's sort of a mindset and how you think about yourself and your brand and your company. And extra effort you might put into the NPD so that you're more successful, and give it a couple of years, and all of a sudden, your margins are going to be trickling up because all of these new products are pulling in better margins. So I hope that was helpful. I said I'd give some more personal examples. We're already at 19 minutes, but I'll share one actually. So right now I am creating a product. I can't tell you exactly what it is because it's sort of in the engineering phase, and I've got a lot of work to do on it. But let's just say that it's a product that moves air, and my goal is that I need it to be. My one goal about this product was I wanted it to be the most quiet and product that moves the most amount of air in its category. And then the physical shape of the product. Now, this is a category that has like zero innovation. Okay, in 1,000 years, zero innovation. Okay, but where I can innovate is sort of the use case. So it's going to be very small. It's going to be very quiet. And it's going to be something that, moms might be interested in. So I'm going after like a real, for the kids. And so I'm going after a real tiny segment. But so I'm niching down, but when it's done, I'll basically be the only one in the market with this product. There won't be anybody else. So, that's exciting for me, because I don't want to go into a market and then have to, compete directly with the factory from China who's coming in here and selling, a product at a price I can't even compete on, right? And that's not where I want to be. So, and it's no fun to be in that area. You don't have time to spend on marketing, and I love marketing and branding, and there's no value you're really adding to the marketplace too. You have to think about that. I mean, when you come in to a market, you have to add value. If you don't, then how can one expect to win? So, anyways, listen, I hope this was uh, valuable on value-based pricing. Love to hear in the comments maybe your challenge, and also, look, I help other CEOs. I help CEOs, founders, um, solve problems. And sometimes their problem is not pricing. Sometimes their margins are like off the charts, better than I ever achieved. But they have other challenges, right? And so sometimes their margins are lower, and that's the first thing. That first thing I look at is margins, because I've been there, done that, and I've moved my margins up, and I know it basically solves most of your problems. So there's many different areas that we tackle. If you're CEO founder, you're looking for some help. I can do a free strategy session. It's low pressure, but I just love to chat with others and build the community and learn about businesses. And just send me a DM or email at luke@airlabs.com. It's AIRLABZ.com. That's for the product I'm working on. And anyways, take care. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope this was valuable, and love to hear your comments. Thanks.